we need to talk about all that, because I'm the same way, Mary. Halfway to 2/3 of the way through, I'm ready to turn it all in. And I've watched it before a couple times. I know it gets better. I know that it has redemption in it, but it's hard to see that in the midst of it, isn't it?
Yes, very.
But think about this year. Is it easy to see redemption in this year either?
Well, the thing about it is it seems more real. That movie seems more real after this year.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth?
Really?
Yes. I mean, you don't imagine like how could that possibly happen? But now I can imagine how that would possibly happen.
There are so many parallels between that as a fictional piece and all this that we've lived in that we wish was a fictional piece.
Yeah.
All this nonfiction.
This is better. I mean, I think what we're going through is so much better, but I thought how easily it could deteriorate.
Sure,
You know?
because it's a cautionary tale in many ways. Are we still at the just getting into Ward 1 and Ward 3 hasn't even shown up, right? And that's what's scary about this is we don't know the end of this story yet.
No.
And so when you see the worst stories and ours is not finished, you go, well, could it?
Yeah.
And how do we help it not happen? Right?
Wear masks. Wash your hands.
There's Siri. Let me get her in. And it's real on a lot of different levels. It's real on the infectious disease level. It's real on the racial level. It's real on the election level. You know, all these different things are what the movie could be an analog to.
Yeah. And what struck me is well, I don't remember the characters' names.
They didn't have names. All they were their description. So you have
doctor. Okay.
What?
The doctor.
Like doctor's wife.
Right.
Right. Girl
so
with dark glasses.
the doctor and the doctor's wife, I mean, they had this plan of how, you know, everything could be fair and they could work things out and everything. But the problem is everybody doesn't want to play the fair game. You know,
or at least what you've decided is the fair game. That's the really tough part is that here I have this plan that I think will work and not everyone fits there. The first one.
And then there's the first.
Go ahead.
The person that wants to have a not fair game and the people that in Ward 3 that basically supported him, no one spoke against him, you know, and said, that's not right. Not a single one.
Yeah.
They either zipped their lip or they, stood up and said, you betcha.
Yeah.
Which is what's scary about now, I think. Like why it seems like, because now I feel like people aren't speaking up.
Right.
When they see things. And so, yeah, that makes the society fall apart.
Yep. But you can see why it's challenging. In the movie, of course, it seemed like all not just the might, but the will to control all lived in Ward 3.
Yes.
And Ward 1 had more of a sense of let's work together, let's get through this, let's survive. And so they were ill prepared to deal with the tactics of Ward 3. Why would Ward 3 want to hoard the food? You know, but yet they did. And so at first they have to overcome their own reluctance to even believe it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you only giving us 2 boxes of food? Why?
Yeah.
Because I don't like
to. I am. That's how I am. This isn't fair.
Yeah.
I want things to be fair.
Yeah. And that's definitely part of what's happening today. You know, people are saying, well, he earned it more because he worked harder. He has this thing in place and so he should get it and all that. And it's like, yeah, but And that doesn't make much inroads in him any more than his stuff is making inroads in me. And it's frustrating conversation sometimes, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, but that, like I said, I kind of was half when it got to the really, like when they wanted the women.
That's a tough, I told you though, didn't I? I was
Yeah.
trying to make sure you understood it is not a simple movie.
But that part was really hard just because you could just picture yourself in that.
It was like, okay, don't watch it at night.
Well, what I did was I was starting to like, I went into Instagram on my phone and I was just kind of swiping and looking up and looking down because I just felt like I had to turn away from it. It was
You had to have
so,
a bit of distance from it. Yeah,
it was so hard to watch, you
absolutely.
know?
And that's because those types of, I think in good people, there is a thing that wants to say that can't ever be true.
I know.
No matter how much we read the stories of it has been true in other spaces, in our space, it can't be true.
But I believe, yeah, I know that happens in other places, you
Yeah.
know, and that's what's so scary about it. It was seemed real. And that was hard to like just realize that that is happening in some
Yeah.
places.
And it is real. That's what's important. It is real. You just
Mm-hmm.
how do you stop it from being real? Right? Because one of the tragic parts about that particular scene is men in that place could have made a different choice, but chose to say, we'll just leave it up to them. Could have made different decisions, right? But men chose not to step into other roles.
I think they felt powerless.
And were there any women in Ward 3 at all? Because if there
It
were,
sure didn't seem like it, at least.
they were,
Yeah, it did seem
yeah,
like
it didn't seem like, but if there were, man, they were abused night and day.
Yeah, maybe. It sure didn't show them at all if they were.
And to be honest, I was really happy when she stabbed him.
Yeah. Here's one of the things I want you to notice in this. And Siri, I think you'll appreciate this especially. The only heroic roles were feminine. Did you notice that?
Yes.
The closest that a man got to a heroic role in this was maybe the man with the black patch.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He was pretty passive throughout, but all the different women were heroic in very different ways. All of them that volunteered to go down there were absolutely heroic. The wife, as she chooses, you know, I one of the scenes I like the best is as they're walking out to the ambulance for him to go there, and you see this look in her face that just says, nope, that's not as far as it's going to go. And she steps into the ambulance. What a heroic move to say,
Really?
that she didn't have to, but she chose to.
Yes. Yes.
And then maybe even more amazing than that. I mean, and then when she goes in and stabs him, absolutely incredible, right? But one of the overlooked things is the woman who slips away as everyone else is trying to decide. And finally they convince everyone to go down the hallway. They're going to confront Ward 3. But meanwhile, this one woman has slipped down there and starts everything on fire.
Yes.
Knowing that she will probably not escape from that, knowing that it was too much to ask anybody else to take on that role, and goes and does that which is necessary.
Mm-hmm. That was very brave too. Yes, there were a lot. You're right. There were a lot of brave women, and especially the doctor's wife was definitely a heroine.
How do you step into a role like that? And how do you fulfill it well? And she didn't always do it perfectly. You saw the times when frustration mounted up too much within her and she had to just walk away. I love this one scene where she walks away and he's still like acting like she's there, thinking that she's there, and then realizes after a bit, wait a second, I'm all alone here. Because sometimes that's what you have to do
Yeah.
in the midst of bravery, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, it was a really interesting movie, and it was kind of scary in
It
the
was
sense
kinda
of,
scary.
because you could picture that, something like that really happening, if there was a pandemic like that, how society could fall apart so fast.
Yep. And what are we going to do to help it not do that? What are we going to do to help it in the midst of if it does fall apart? Right?
I appreciate that you let us know that there was some tough things to watch in this movie. So then it was like I knew I could not watch it in the evening. I would have to watch it
Yeah.
in an afternoon,
Yeah.
so
Just
that
know,
it would
just
keep
know,
me from going to sleep.
yeah. Just know it's always appropriate to watch movies like this.
Well, yeah, I have done that in scary parts of movies, like
Yeah.
in The Silence of the Lambs at the end. I had to watch that movie like that because I didn't want her to go in that house.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't want her. I kept, don't go in that house.
Well, and in this movie, I don't want wife to go down and kill. I don't want. I know how much that cost her moral soul. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean
Right.
like is she going to heaven or hell? I mean just what she has to become to be able to do that act.
Yes.
You saw the difficulty it was, and so on one level, I don't want her to have to do that, but the alternative and the cost that she's paying is worth what she gives to everyone else, and that's a difficult thing. How do you measure that?
But it was, the way I looked at it, it was they weren't going to get food, and it was for the greater good.
And ultimately, Mary, I don't think it was just about food. I think it was about stopping that
Evil.
which was going to continue to damage.
Get
It was,
worse.
yeah, it was not just going, I mean, they went from just food to I was going to call it sex, but it wasn't sex, the rape, right? And what was going to be next?
Right, because the one woman died.
Yeah, that's right.
From them going down there. So to me, it just felt like they were just eventually all going to die, either
Yeah.
from a lack of food or from the abuse.
Yeah. And so when is it that you have to take what is abhorrent to you or to your previous self and step into that role?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe wife was particularly prepared for that, because one of the most striking pieces of the whole film was how often they showed that hallway becoming more and more littered with not just papers and dirt, but bodies, right?
Right.
And nobody else saw that, but she did.
She saw
And
it.
she chose on a regular basis because something was more important than to clean that up. She could have every single day tried to clean that hallway up, but had to make the decision of what's that which needs my concern more.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways, she was prepared to say, I'm not supposed to kill, but that's what needs my concern more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's scary to have to get to that place though, isn't it?
It's very scary. It's very scary. But I was happy when she did that.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
As we should be. I don't think that your happiness was in isolation.
Yeah, I was happy that, there was a chance for everybody else once that guy was gone.
Yeah.
But then it really got crazy. Then it really got crazy.
Yeah. But part of that is because who was left over, the one that was called the accountant.
The real blind man.
The real blind man. That
Yeah.
suddenly, because he had experience in being blind, he was the most sighted person there.
Right.
Other than her, right?
Right. Yes.
And so suddenly he had a type of power that was in reverse to what had been normal.
Yes, because he had the sense, the hearing sensitivity, he just had developed a more acute sense of how to get around.
Yeah,
as
and a used to, you know,
Yes.
I'm used
Yeah.
to what this
Of
is. This is
spatial,
not-
yeah.
Yeah, this is
Mhm.
not abnormal to me.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it was that. And then I did like, I did like the black man with the eye patch. He just seemed like he was a calming influence.
Yeah,
I mean, that one part where he played the music and everybody was kind of entranced,
yes.
that was very healing.
And I thought,
But at the end, oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
At the end, I saw sadness on his face because he's going to, if going back, he had community with this group and poorness, and he was taking care of people, looked out for in Ward 1, looked out for each other. And I saw sadness in his face at the end that I'm going to lose this community. I don't want to be.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Garnet. Like, I wasn't sure what he was thinking right there, but I knew at least part of it was, what now?
Well, he even said something like that, didn't he say something like that? I can't remember, but he
What-
gave the impression that this had a good thing for him.
Yeah, here's what I think you may be referring to. I might be wrong, but as they're moving towards the house, he and girl with dark glasses have
Right.
a conversation, and she begins to try to describe herself, right? And he says, I don't want to know what you look like, because I can see what you look like on the inside, and that's what's most important.
Right.
Right. And I think at least part of his fear might have been, are we going to go back to the old way of viewing each other? Or can we stay in this way where I see something beautiful in you and you're seeing something beautiful in me? Or will my looks or your looks drive us apart?
Yeah.
And that is fearful, right? Because we most of us know some of the ugly about ourselves, but the person who loves us best kind of sees beyond that ugliness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain amount of where we all have to worry about where will they start seeing the ugly.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Which may not be our biggest definition, or maybe not even important at all, but is that going to be what they see and choose to notice? And he knew, obviously, that dark glasses was much younger than her, much younger than him. And was she going to say, I don't want to be with that old man now that I can really see that he's old man?
Why did she wear the dark glasses? I didn't get that.
I think it was just, at the beginning, when she was in doctor's office, it talked some about that. And he kind of implied, you don't really need dark glasses, but he saw a psychological need for them. And so he prescribed dark glasses for her, knowing that that was helping her mentally, emotionally in some way or another. Maybe it's, I don't know how you, for example, do the job that she had. I don't want to call her a prostitute so much as there she is in that type of a role.
Right.
How do you do that without damaging your psyche? And so maybe that was part of the way she didn't damage her psyche.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I was curious, the man that she was with when she went blind, did he show up in the ward? I mean, I don't remember if because the woman that helped her in the hallway when she went blind, she ended up in the ward. But did the man she was with that evening, did he show up in the ward?
I don't remember him showing up, at least.
Okay,
Maybe he did,
okay.
I don't remember. But yeah, the nurse did show up.
Yeah.
Or not nurse, but
she was like a worker at the hotel.
was the worker at the hotel. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting to see. some of that first set of scenes, how then those faces came back in different ways, right? And,
Right.
and to kind of transmit that idea of infectious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
And
then
then the little boy, that's another thing I was confused about. Who was his mother?
if you remember, he was in the first set of scenes as well. He was in
Right.
the doctor's chair. A mother was there, but we didn't really see her well. But she was not infected that we know of at that point.
She wasn't at the place.
Not
That's
that
the
we know of.
impression I got.
Yeah,
She
not
wasn't
that I
at
know
the
of.
place.
Which
So he kind of attached to the doctor.
But also ultimately his biggest connection became the prostitute, the wrong kind of woman,
Right. That too. Yes.
a mother, and yet she became the motherly figure to him, right?
Yes. Right. Yes.
Which I thought was a very interesting way to redeem a role
Mm-hmm.
and say, look, anybody is much more than what your first impression of that somebody is.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, you've been very quiet. Tell us your
Yeah.
impressions.
Well, it was a really hard movie,
Yeah.
and I did not sleep well at all after watching this, and it especially hard for me was the part where the women were stuck in the situation where they had to prostitute themselves in order to get food or whatever they had to have to survive, and that was really triggering for me. I just had to fast forward through it. And I saw that there was one woman who died. Mary, you mentioned that, but it was just, I couldn't watch it.
I'm glad you did fast forward through that then. It definitely, you don't have to watch every bit of a movie to get the story.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of questioned, it is realistic that kind of thing could happen in that situation. But I also kind of questioned when I see that come up in art, and whether it's film or whatever form it is. I kind of question about that, and I question also because my closest friend Douglas, he was a counselor in New York City, and he worked with kids who had run away from home because their parents were addicted to drugs or other kinds of highly dysfunctional situations where oftentimes they just could not stay, and some of them were being sexually abused, and a number of them were prostituting themselves,
Mhm.
and they were not all female.
Right.
There were
Mhm.
boys too, and so when I see a story like this and it's all women that it's focused on, taking that role and think about that's kind of the stereotype, but what is the reality?
Mhm.
That really it was not uncommon at all in that situation that some of those boys would be prostituting themselves, quite a number.
Right.
And so so it when I see men writing films, men directing films, and the storyline kind of goes this way, and it makes me question.
Yeah. And that's why it's important that we continue to get women's empower women to take on those roles more and more, and expect that. AMC, American Movie Classics, the channel, has been doing a series of films. It's really an art. It's really a movie class in a very real way. That's about women make films, and it's trying to go back and it's showing cinematic techniques, but it's only showing clips from films made by women, and so it's trying to, it's trying to empower the fact that from the beginning of filming there have been women making these films. We've just relatively ignored them, and so at least part of the attempt of this film is to try to say there's a lot out there. Let's get more.
Yeah.
And so you're right. That's part of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Well, some of the times when I was watching the movie, I kept on thinking, no, where do I see God? Because I was like, Jim's going to say, where did you see God in this movie? And I was like, and really, I think where I saw God was at the end, where you saw the relationship between husbands and wives strengthen, be stronger, that while they might have loved their spouse, there was things that weren't as strong as it had been in the past. Yeah. And I saw that, and it was like, okay, there's where I see God. And then
how this group bonded.
The larger community beyond just what had been your circle. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the hardest scenes for me, but in some ways one that cemented this, was when Doctor had sex with dark glasses.
Right.
And wife saw that, and I don't know quite what to make of it, but I think it was trying to say, in a weird way, the larger sense of community that we need. Now, it's not a good way of being able to say that. I think there were many better storylines to be able to tell that, but I think that's kind of what was being meant there. That we need a larger community than just ourselves, just the small that we usually have. I, in a very real sense, need each one of you to be able to find myself completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just really think it was the community, that little community that ward had.
And the hard part, which may be what iPatch was struggling with, is, will it, now that we're getting our sights back, will we be able to hold this community together, or do we lose us? Mm-hmm. This precious us that we found in this. Mm-hmm. And that's always difficult, because we all know, our past tells us the community that used to be strong isn't there anymore. As soon as you graduate from high school, you lose a strength of community, right? You don't have this relationship.
Yeah. Certain circumstances put you in community with other people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you move on, but I still think you have that, you carry that with you.
Yeah, but it has to evolve. This morning, I got a call from a man named Gilbert. Gilbert and I have known each other for over 40 years. I was 15 years old when I moved to Beeville, Texas, and he was the senior, the #1 man on our cross country team, and the person that I learned how to run from in a very real way. And so we talked for a while today, and still have community, but definitely not the same way. He can't run at all anymore because of his knees, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't have that kind of relationship. It has to evolve into something different than that, mm-hmm. Which isn't bad, but you mourn what gets lost.
Mm-hmm. I have to turn off my air. It's too cold.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I was thinking about turning my down another degree.
Oh, I get too cold.
It's that time of year though, where like during the summer, you just have it turned on all the way up and as low as it goes, because you need all of that just to stay somewhat normal. And then suddenly you kind of going, hey, I have to adjust the air because. So I want to tell you a little bit about the book. I think I told you some about the book last week, but Jose Saramago, who wrote this book, wrote it in a very strange style. Paragraphs are pages long, literally 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 pages long, and without punctuation and without capital letters, just run on. And I think the reason for that was to purposely throw you into a space where your old definitions didn't work. So essentially you were having to live the world of blindness. And so I think as they went through some of the things that they went through where there sometimes wasn't a coherent storyline, just a set of pictures and things going by. It was trying to put us in that same type of spot where you were confused. And especially during that part that was the hardest to watch, all of that was supposed to put you way outside of Kansas, right? That you're in some other world besides what you're used to. And that's really hard to go through, because what we do on a regular basis in life is hold on to that which gives us a sense of normalcy. And what it's trying to do is toss us, as we have been this whole year, into a space of non-normalcy and say, what are you going to do now? So what do we do with COVID that's still around? Like today, I saw that Wisconsin had their highest single day of new incidences, right? Which tells me, damn, is it coming back again? You know, we don't know. We hope not. You know, it feels relatively contained here in Arizona, doesn't it? But is that just our illusion?
Well, it's related to the mask wearing. If people are willing to wear masks, you know, for the vast majority of them, then, you know, we'll probably be okay. But if people are throwing out their masks and thinking that everything's all right again, you know, we'll be in trouble again.
So what I just heard you say, Siri, was those damn people in Ward 3 aren't wearing their mask. And
that's right. That's right.
Right? Ward 3
right.
lives in all of these issues, right? And what are we going to do about that? You know, I don't want to get my pair of scissors and, but what is the thing that is asked for in the moment? What do you do?
That's very frustrating, because it's because it became political. That's what's so frustrating. It became political instead of scientific.
Right. And it's not the only way we're having to deal with them. You know, we'll have an election in a few days, and it is not going to end the division in our country.
No.
What's going to happen when I believe Donald Trump is going to be defeated, and what's going to happen with those Proud Boys who he's told to stand by?
Yeah.
Look what I got in the mail today.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, I've been waiting. I've been waiting.
Yeah. And it's not just what is their next step, it's also what's our next step. And that's tough, isn't it?
It's scary, and I'm just hoping it's not as bad as I think it might be. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
After election.
Well, the hard part is this. We have to be prepared we have to be both hopeful for it not to be as bad as it could be, but we also have to try to figure out what happens if I do. Because what we don't want to be is, right at the beginning of the story, there were two characters that were talking. I think it was Thief and First Man. First Man was the guy who was in the car and blinded. The one guy says, "I see nothing," and the other guy says, "Try harder."
Yeah, you're driving. How can you drive if you can't see?
Well, and you know, I've talked to a whole bunch of people that are on the other side of some of the political things, and sometimes I look back and I go, I think I was just saying try harder. And was I really helping very much in that conversation? And so, you know, we have to ask those questions of what really needs to be done. What I need to change and do differently. And I don't mean pick up the scissors and stab him in the neck necessarily, but it's not going to be the easiest first choice.
I'm hoping there's enough rational people, but then I've seen that there's not as many rational people as I thought there were in the United States, and that's what's scaring me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the hard part. We don't know, and it doesn't take much imagination to see Ward 3 emerge.
Yeah. Did you see about the guys that were arrested for plotting to kidnap the Michigan governor?
Yeah, and did you see also the response of somebody in the White House? Why can't
No, I didn't.
he essentially said, yeah, they're just making all that up.
Oh, it's fake news. No, I didn't see that. I just read that, and I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you know.
And being from Michigan, it touches my heart, even though I know nothing about this governor, but I have family, cousins back there. But, it was a little bit closer because of that connection to that state, even though it should touch my heart no matter what state. But
Mhm.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that at least part of what the question is in the midst of chaos, what is it that it's going to call out of you? Which may be difficult. For the one lady, it was crawling down and setting fire to things.
Mhm.
Not asking anyone else to do it, but taking that very difficult step to do what she had to do.
Mhm.
What is it going to be for each one of us as we move forward? And it can and it can be in a lot of different ways. Like when I first started pastoring, I was just an intern, and I was out in Sun City, which is a retirement community. And I went into a space. I was visiting almost all 90-year-olds, and I went and talked to this one lady, and I realized afterwards, not while I was in the room with her, but I realized afterwards that she was kind of asking permission for me to let her die.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm not certain I gave that because I didn't recognize that. But she died within a couple weeks after that time. And I've since learned that sometimes is my job, to look at people and say, if you need to go, you need to go. And don't.
And I did that with my mom when she was in the hospital. There was different times, and I said, because she kept on pulling her oxygen thing out of her nose, and I said, you know what happens with the body what happens if your body doesn't get oxygen? No, what? And I said, well, you die. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
And she said, no. And I said, then you got to keep it. And she pulled it out 3 times that day. I was like, do you know what's going to happen? No, what? Third time she looked at me and she said, you die.
Ah,
And I said, is that what you want? No. I said, then you've got to keep that in there, and you can only take it out if your doctor tells you you can take it out, because for her, doctors were the right hand of God. And you know
Right.
what? She never took it out again until the doctor said she didn't have to wear it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, just to find out, is this what you want? Because I was there to support her in her decision, what she wanted.
Yeah. And the hard part about that may have nothing at all to do with what you think is the right decision, what your heart wants, what, anything else that might be rational from your point of view. And how do we sit in that space? It's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we always I was the only one of us that really could have a conversation with my mom about death. Others, it's like, no, we can't. But we had a very comfortable relationship in that ability. So
Yeah.
I felt very comfortable about.
Yeah, I kind of have that same relationship with my mom as well, where I'm the one who is able to say, to just talk about issues like that. And my grandmother, her mother had Alzheimer's. And so we have a pact that if either of us notices the signs in the other, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what? I wish my mom's still alive with Alzheimer's, and I wish the last time I had seen her in person, I would have said, Mom, if you want to go, and go up to heaven and see your family and dad and all your sisters, you can go. It's okay.
Uh-huh.
Because now it's been over a year. We're doing Zoom calls with her.
Yeah.
I can't really say that because the family's all there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it would make a difference, but I really wish I had said that last year, is Mom, it's okay if you want to go, because she doesn't even know who we are or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And Alzheimer's is difficult even in the best of circumstances.
Yeah. And now it's worse.
Yeah.
It's worse. And she has, she sits there and she'll look at us for a little bit and smile, and then she goes back to sleep. And then we talk with each other, figuring that at least she's maybe hearing our voices.
Oh, and she is. Hearing's the last to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. but I do, and my sister who lives there and was the one visiting her the most, my sister didn't want her to die, and she had a need for her to stay alive. And I just felt like my mom wouldn't have wanted to live like that.
Yeah. But who knows, Mary, part of your job may be to somehow talk to that sister. And it's a hard conversation to have when somebody is holding on to not letting go.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing they want to hear is somebody else's reasons why they are letting go. But sometimes being able to be in that honest space will help them to see differently too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked to my brother about it, but not my sister, because she seems like she's not ready to talk about it, I would say.
It's difficult. All those spaces like that. You have the same type of thing when kids leave home. What are all the issues you need or want to talk about that are hard to talk about? All of those transition type of spaces put us in a awkward space. It's a lot like when either your mom and dad had the sex talk with you, or you had to have the sex talk with your kids. There's no way to do that in a comfortable way, but you got to do it, right? You as a kid need to hear it, and you as an adult need to speak it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just do the awkward, difficult thing at that moment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's a lot of other moments that are similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had Alzheimer's late in her life as well. And it was hard. I just saw her gradually fade away. But there were moments that would surprise me. Like, a year or two before probably more like a year before she died, I said, I love you to her, and she was able to say, I love you back.
Nice.
But she didn't seem to really know who we were. I couldn't really tell. We didn't know if she had any idea who we were, but there would just be these little moments that would surprise me.
Yeah.
But eventually she ended up with breast cancer, and it just wasn't, sensible to try to do major surgery on her. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my most precious moments as a pastor was with a man named Bill Finn, and I only knew Bill Finn in the Alzheimer's ward, right?
Mm.
He would not recognize me. It's, I would come as, I'm Pastor Jim, and so he would recognize me as a pastor, but didn't know anything else. And I'd have to introduce again the next time, right? And so I visited him about once a month. And one time I just asked this question that I ask very often when I go and visit in hospitals and care centers. And his response was just remarkable. And it reminded me. I said, Bill, do you want me to say a prayer? And he goes, oh, would you? Would you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just the idea that this is just a everyday thing for me, something that I just do because you just do it. And
Mm-hmm.
to him, there was something precious about that. There was something deeper and more meaningful than what I was thinking about. And so kind of like with your mom, Siri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there'd be those kind of surprising moments.
Yeah. Which is nice, huh?
Yeah. Go ahead, Garnet.
My most precious moment in my mom's passing was the night before she passed, and I was speaking, and she was in that coma state, and I was talking quietly in her ear, and I basically, we knew that the hospice nurse said she's not going to make it through the weekend. She won't. I'd be surprised if she did. I think, but my sister in California was going to come over the next day, and I said, Mother, if you want somebody here with you in that moment of transition, Beth will be here tomorrow from California, but not until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, but you know, if this is okay, if you want to do it yourself, this is your moment. You get to choose your moment. And I said, but with that said, I said, my dad had been gone like 60 years. My stepdad had been gone 25 years. I said, Daddy and Richard are really getting anxious for you to join them. And she ended up, she had a tear. And I thought she's got dry, teary eyes, because she always had, wet eyes. But it was like, oh, and no, that's a tear, because they hadn't put any eye drops in her for a long time. And it was like, that was my precious moment. And confirmation that she heard me and she knew it was her choice. Not, she was having to do something for somebody else.
Very nice.
Very precious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the difficulty of any kind of moment like that is that we are sitting in the middle of the rape scene going, when the hell is all this going to end? And we have a lot of non-control. I mean, even as she was brave and stabbed him in the neck, which was taking some control, she knew it wasn't solving everything. Even when everything was on fire and they went out in the courtyard, she expected still to be entrapped by the guards.
Right.
Just hoping that they could give them some kind of safety. You don't know when things like that will end. Right? There's a whole lot of having to just keep moving step by step. And one of the most heartbreaking scenes of this movie for me was as they're moving along, right, through the city. Mm-hmm. They're going wonderfully and well, and the one guy just takes a turn that nobody else takes.
Yeah, and he was a young kid.
And it's like, where the hell did he go to? And what happened to him? We don't know. Right? And it's like, wait, does that happen? And in a very real way, it does on a regular basis. And he never got to that, at least for us, he never got to that final happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, we really don't know that about all the other characters. We just know that the one guy got his sight back and it looked like a new day, but it was a very different day.
And they had it was like they had a temporary break from the misery.
Yeah.
Know what was going to happen, but you knew, like, they had a moment of joy.
Yeah.
Or a day of joy or whatever it was. Yeah. They still had to go find more food and everything, but I mean, for just like this moment in time, everybody felt alive again, and that was really uplifting.
Yeah, and there's definitely that hope that if first man got his sight back, then one by one, all of the rest of us are going to. But it never really shows if that happens or doesn't happen.
No.
And it definitely didn't show what the cleanup was going to be.
Right. Then they have to clean up the town, I mean,
absolutely.
the world or whatever.
In a million different ways. And Ward 3 that happened inside the prison, inside I guess you can call it a prison, inside the hospital, that was happening in other ways around the city.
Right. Yep.
Right. You saw the kids attack the one couple with their cart. So, how are they going to get through all of that? We don't know. But it doesn't just go away, does it?
No. But it was a nice way to end. Just to have that moment of like where you could breathe and feel like they had some time of joy.
Yeah. But in a very real way, isn't that what we have to do anyway? We have to remind ourselves of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because tomorrow will be a hard day, but in this moment we have this time of remembering a bigger picture, a larger picture, a clearer picture, something.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry that the movie doesn't solve everything.
It's okay. None of them do.
None of them do.
None of them do.
And I'm sorry that it exposes some of the tragedy of life, the unavoidable tragedy of life, I guess I could say, and that we can't really describe until we hit it. Who could have even begun to describe 2020 to any of us, right? And yet here we are doing our best to live through it, messy hallway and all.
Yeah, it seems like March seems like a million years ago.
Wow, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. It really does.
And yet this will turn us into something we've never been before. We just don't know what it is yet. Here's the bad news is that next week's movie is also a very, very harsh one.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Jim. You are you have babies. I've never seen it.
Babe. It's
It looks
really
like a
hard.
cartoon. Huh?
It's a really hard movie, Babe.
It looks like a cartoon.
It
He's
is a
twist.
cartoon.
He's. I think it's
Oh, you're
supposed to be
being
fun.
sarcastic. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
After
Yeah.
a couple of hard weeks,
You can
go
watch
and
it at
enjoy
night.
Babe, okay?
Thank you. Thank you for that movie.
Well,
It's
here's that thing. I won't be there next week because that's my Thursday in the month of October that I'm going to be occupied until just after. Well, I probably won't get home until about 8 o'clock.
well, we'll have to make sense out of Babe without you.
Yeah.
If you need to borrow this movie, let me know. It's sitting up here at church, but it's a pretty simple one to find just about anywhere you go. Very, very common movie to get to. All right. So enjoy watching that.
Well, and of course, there might not. I mean, you might have to cancel it because there's not going to be a virtual debate, but there might be. It was going to be at that time, probably.
Oh,
Who knows
well,
what's going to happen, right? Everything seems so
I'm not-
up in the air.
I'm not watching a debate between Trump and Biden.
Not enough
because
of it. But if you didn't
I've
watch
had
last
enough of
night,
Trump
you
to
missed my
last me
favorite
like
part.
forever. I'd rather read about it the next day.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did with that debate. I caught a couple clips at the end, and that was it because I knew I didn't want to hear what Trump had to say.
That was enough.
Yeah. It's not like I'm going to change my mind because of anything Trump is ever going to say.
At least
Plus
last
it was, plus it was in the evening and the same thing. I would have been mad and then I wouldn't have slept good.
Yeah.
I have to get
Yeah.
up for work,
my favorite part of last night, I think you guys all really appreciate that though. This was the vice presidential debate, and Pence didn't talk on top of it. At least it felt like two human beings in the same room.
Yeah.
He wouldn't stop talking no matter how much the moderator asked him. But
Yeah.
I love how Kamala Harris at one point said this, "Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking."
Yeah. Yeah.
Very clearly just said, look, you don't get to do that to me. I know you're,
Yeah.
I know you're used to talking on top of women, but
Yeah.
very brave, very strong.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so very much for the time.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Garnet,
2
Garnet,
weeks.
can I ask?
Yes.
Garnet, can I quick ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Where in Michigan are you from?
I am from the middle of the mitten, Mecosta County. Remus, Blanchard, but it's like 30 miles away from Mount Pleasant. So most people don't know Remus, Blanchard, it's, population 400 and 600 but yeah.
Do you know Hell, Michigan?
Hell?
Hell, Michigan?
No.
It's over near Pinckney.
It's over
My
by the
grandparents had a cottage over there. I can't really tell you the part of the mitten, but anyway, yeah.
I know the mittens exist, but how is it? Wait,
Yeah.
I know you put them up there somehow.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
my friends, take
All
care.
right, you guys. All right, bye-bye.
Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.